May 28, 1940, Reich Air Ministry, Berlin. Reich Marshal Hermann Göring set down the intelligence report with undisguised contempt. The heavy silence in the room broken only by the shuffle of papers and the faint hum of distant city traffic. The report detailed President Roosevelt's audacious request to Congress for an expansion of American aircraft production on a scale the world had never seen before, an annual capacity to manufacture 50,000 planes. Göring chuckled dismissively and then told his staff, with the swagger of a man intoxicated by recent victories, that the Americans were desperate if they believed such propaganda would frighten the Reich. In his arrogance, he mocked their supposed ignorance, insisting that America's reliance on consumer automobile factories would be their undoing, since building warplanes required not just assembly lines, but specialized craftsmanship, precision engineering, and years of experience. What Göring failed to grasp, and what would soon prove fatal, was that in Detroit a Danish immigrant named William Knudsen, once the president of General Motors, was already orchestrating the impossible, working for Roosevelt for a symbolic $1 per year. Knudsen had accepted the monumental responsibility of mobilizing the world's most advanced industrial nation into a war machine. His knowledge of automotive mass production, his ability to standardize processes, and his genius for scaling complex systems would transform Roosevelt's proclamation into reality. Within just 4 years, American factories would not only meet the impossible target Göring mocked, but would double it, producing nearly 100,000 aircraft annually while simultaneously supplying 2 global war theaters across oceans, sending ships, tanks, guns, and supplies in quantities the Axis powers could never hope to match. When Roosevelt first spoke to Congress on May 16, 1940, declaring that he wanted to see the nation capable of producing 50,000 planes a year, the reaction was skeptical even among allies. In 1939, America had produced just 3,611 military aircraft, and the Army Air Corps had only 1,700 combat planes, many already obsolete. A 14-fold increase in production sounded like fantasy, but Roosevelt's insistence set in motion an industrial transformation that reshaped global history. Knudsen was identified as the one man capable of this miracle, with Roosevelt advisors saying when asked who could deliver, first, Bill Knudsen. Second, Bill Knudsen. Third, Bill Knudsen. He abandoned his $300,000 salary, one of the highest in America, to serve his adopted country, and under his leadership the arsenal of democracy began to stir. By December 1941, just 2 years later, American factories were already producing 2,000 military aircraft every month, a 20-fold increase from pre-war levels, and massive new plants were rising across the nation. Ford announced the creation of Willow Run in Michigan, a bomber factory so vast that it would become the world's largest building under one roof, while Boeing expanded its Seattle operations and Douglas Aircraft hired tens of thousands of new workers. Göring and Hitler's contempt stemmed not only from arrogance, but from racial prejudice and ideological blindness. Reports from General Friedrich von Boeticher, Germany's military attaché in Washington, warned Berlin in December 1940 that American production would soon reach unimaginable levels, but Hitler dismissed him, ranting instead about American racial degeneracy, and claiming the nation was too Judaized and too mixed to fight effectively. To Nazi leadership, the reports of women entering American aircraft factories were interpreted as signs of weakness and desperation, not as evidence of democratic mobilization. Their worldview simply could not comprehend that free people, driven by shared purpose, could mobilize on a scale that would outstrip totalitarian command. They scoffed at the notion of factories running 3 shifts around the clock, dismissing it all as exaggeration. Yet by 1943, Ford's Willow Run, once plagued by delays and quality control disasters, had mastered the impossible. Early attempts to mass-produce the B-24 bomber were disastrous, with the first aircraft requiring near-complete rebuilding and defect rates at 50%. Critics mocked the plant as Will It Run rather than Willow Run. But Ford engineers broke the massive bomber, with its nearly 500,000 individual parts, into modular subassemblies, introduced hydraulic riveting tools, prefabricated wiring harnesses, and improved quality control, all while accommodating 578 design changes in a single year without halting production. By September 1943, Willow Run was producing 148 bombers monthly by December 365, and by April 1944 the factory hit its incredible promise. One completed be 24 rolling off the line every 63 minutes, 24 hours a day. This single factory, employing tens of thousands, was outproducing the entire German aviation industry. The Luftwaffe pilots first realized what this meant in Tunisia in late 1942, when Major Johannes Steinhoff observed that American pilots were no longer amateurs, and worse, that their numbers grew daily. By early 1943, the nightmare was clear. On January 27, 1943, American bombers struck Germany itself for the first time, and by that autumn, despite suffering catastrophic losses, such as the infamous Black Thursday raid over Schweinfurt, when 60 B-17s were destroyed, American factories simply replaced them within weeks. The mathematics became undeniable. During Big Week, in February 1944, the U.S. 8th and 15th Air Forces launched 3,500 bomber sorties against German aircraft production, devastating facilities even as Luftwaffe fighters inflicted losses. But while Germany was losing 1,200 fighters per month and could produce only 1,000, America was producing 2,500 fighters monthly while losing just 400. Major Heinz Bahr, one of Germany's top aces, described the hopeless sight of confronting bomber streams that stretched from horizon to horizon, hundreds of American B-17s and B-24s, escorted by swarms of P-51 Mustangs, against which a handful of German fighters could do nothing. By 1944, American production dwarfed Germany's capacity. That year alone, U.S. factories produced 96,270 aircraft, including over 16,000 heavy four-engine bombers, 35,000 fighters, and more than 22,000 transport and multi-engine aircraft. In a single year, the U.S. outproduced Germany's total wartime aircraft output, and the advantage wasn't just in numbers. American planes came bristling with defensive guns, powered turrets, advanced Norden bomb sights, long-range navigation, and radios that worked. German fighters increasingly lacked fuel, ammunition, and functioning equipment. The Boeing plant in Seattle was producing 16 B-17s daily by mid-1944. Douglas Aircraft employed over 160,000 workers across 9 massive facilities, and North American Aviation was churning out 500 P-51 Mustangs each month. Lockheed built a P-38 Lightning every 90 minutes, incorporating thousands of combat-driven modifications on the fly. Supporting industries kept pace. General Motors produced nearly 58,000 aircraft engines. Packard built 55,000 Rolls-Royce Merlins. Alcoa expanded aluminum output by 600%. Dow Chemicals multiplied magnesium production 50-fold. Meanwhile, America's workforce transformed. In 1941, women were less than 1% of aircraft workers, but by 1943, they were 65%, 310,000 women in aviation alone. At Douglas Long Beach, more than half the 41,000 employees were women, many like Rose Monroe, Rosie the Riveter, who drove 3,000 rivets per shift at Willow Run with 99.5% accuracy. German intelligence dismissed these workers as temporary, predicting collapse in quality, but in reality, quality improved. Women inspectors reduced defect rates from 3.2% to just 0.3%, and redesigned tools for smaller hands improved efficiency across the board. To the Nazis, it seemed inconceivable, but democratic integration was proving far more effective than forced labor. Germany's response was to disperse production into underground facilities like the Mittelwerk Complex, where 60,000 slave laborers were forced to work under horrific conditions that killed 20,000 of them. Sabotage was rampant, quality collapsed, and even at its peak, the entire complex produced fewer engines monthly than Ford's single Chicago plant. Meanwhile, American innovation raced ahead with the B-29 Superfortress, built modularly across 4 factories with interchangeable parts, pressurization, and advanced systems Germany could never match. By June 6, 1944, D-Day revealed the full scope of American industrial annihilation. 11,590 Allied aircraft, supporting the landings against just 319 German sorties, a 36-1 advantage. This wasn't mere tactical superiority. It was total industrial obliteration. Transport aircraft dropped 3 divisions in a single day, more planes than Germany's entire transport fleet ever possessed. By December 1944, single raids involved 1,200 bombers escorted by 900 fighters. P-51s roamed the skies from France to Poland in such numbers that German pilots called them Indians, appearing everywhere at once. Even Goebbels confessed in his diary that Göring's promises of Luftwaffe superiority now seemed like criminal delusions, while Field Marshal Rommel admitted before D-Day that American material superiority meant no position could hold. Hitler himself told his staff in 1945 that they should have listened to Boetticher's reports, that America's industrial power was decisive, that while Germany built hundreds, America built tens of thousands.